Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about some things. As I'm sure you're aware, there are currently a lot of protests happening around the world right now after the murder of George Floyd by police officers. The reason I mention this is that today's game has some themes and imagery that may be read as racially insensitive, and it has been debated since its release over a decade ago. I didn't pick to review this game based on any of the scenarios currently ongoing. This video was actually planned months ahead of the current situation, but the timing of my schedule hasn't worked out quite well. Personally, just to get some criticism out of the way, I do think some of the imagery used is outdated and it made me uncomfortable at points, but I'm going to refrain from going into it as that's not my debate to have, and I'd much rather point you in the direction of ways to help those dealing with racism today than bashing a company for a video game that's a decade old. As was the case in my Upload VR video, there are links to help support those fighting for their rights. We here at VividChim stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement and their goals to end systemic racism around the world. Thank you for hearing me out, and I hope you enjoy the video. When it came to Resident Evil before this franchise review, my experience with the games was limited to two titles primarily: the on-the-rails shooter known as the Umbrella Chronicles and Resident Evil 5. Hey everyone, Kane from VividChim here, and I actually completed RE5 a long time ago when I was in high school with one of my friends, and I have a lot of fond memories of my experience playing in the game, but do those memories hold up? Well, let's find out as I ask Resident Evil 5, how bad can it be? Resident Evil 5 takes place in the year 2009 and follows Chris Redfield, now a member of the BSAA. He is dispatched to Africa where he meets his new partner Sheva Alomar, who are both now tasked in apprehending Ricardo Irving before he can sell a bioorganic weapon, or BOW, on the black market. After arriving, they discover the locals have been infected with RE4's Las Plagas, and the Alpha team have been killed. Chris and Sheva are rescued by the Delta team of the BSAA, led by Josh Stone, and in Stone's data, Chris finds an image of Jill Valentine, presumed dead since an encounter with my favourite character and yours, Albert Wesker. Chris and Sheva then continue their mission to find Irving, while also determined to learn about Jill's fate. The narrative of this game is an unusual one. It's not exactly bad, but it's a rapid departure from the previous game's more horror-based narratives. Even 4, which was decidedly more action-focused, wasn't this much of a leap. It's a sharp and hard turn to the direction of an action movie, with the horror all but gone, and the story elements that do remain aren't balanced in a way that makes for a continuously engaging game. Irving is just a MacGuffin character, and at one point another MacGuffin character is introduced in Tricell CEO Excella Gion. The plot isn't even linked to the Las Plagas infected African civilians, who are immediately cast aside with the introduction of Ouroboros, a new virus. That is why Chris and Sheva are there in the first place. They literally only mentioned Las Plagas as a "hey, remember RE4" nod, so they had an excuse for the African civilians to be the main enemy of the game. Even some of the Resident Evil fan pages and Wikipedia sites that I use to often cite my lore in these scripts refuse and neglect to mention that Las Plagas is even in RE5. It's that inconsequential of a story beat. The story's a mess, and even with me playing RE5 after playing 7 of these games, I didn't care. I wasn't interested in Ouroboros, I didn't care that Jill apparently died because it was off-screen aside from flashbacks to something I didn't experience, and I didn't know either of these two characters who took up the bulk of the story before being completely undermined, murdered, and cast aside for Wesker anyway. It was bad. I was actually really impressed with the way RE5 looked after all these years. It's not a modern game by any stretch of the imagination, but the models and textures on said models look really good, especially on Chris. I was really impressed by that. That's not to say everything is perfect, because, well, it isn't. I can't really remember a single environment of this game sans the ending, and as of writing, I last played it about 4 days ago, if that. Everything looks the same, not even in an RE4 way where it was specifically just the colour palette. No, in RE5 everything just looks the same. Every sequence you have leading up to when you get on the boat looks identical, all the tribal village sections look identical, and even the usual, hey, we're in an industrial and scientific facility now, they also look identical to each other. It's a boring game to look at, and while there are some sections which are slightly different, it's never different enough to be memorable. Literally the only memories I have of this game are the first chapter and a half, because everything else just blends into one big, bland, sun-baked soup. Audio-wise, it's almost completely forgettable. The only two things I found to be remotely noteworthy was Chris's weird delivery of "come on" that you can do constantly, as well as the music when the chainsaw enemies come running at you. Yeah, it wasn't good. Let's start with the positives here. The controls are a massive step in the right direction and feel like they've committed to modernizing the way these games feel as opposed to the weird limbo RE4 was in. It's crisp and feels great on a controller. The mouse and keyboard support isn't great, but it isn't exactly bad either. It was just a step down from some of the newer games I've played. The more fluid approach to the inventory introduced in RE5 really helps you keep the pace lively, and the quick equip options are fantastic and remain fantastic to this day. I'm not too keen on how it doesn't freeze the game at all, but that's a side effect of the game being built around co-op play. Oh yeah, by the way, this game was made for co-op, and you 100% feel that throughout the game in sequences that would usually require both partners working together to solve a puzzle, if you can even call them that. You can command Sheva to do the stuff, but it's never going to be as good as an actual player, leading her to cause some game overs for you. Playing this game as a single player experience is miserable, and I wouldn't recommend it in the slightest. Hell, playing it as a co-op experience probably is only fun when you know the person, because I think most of the problems that this game actually has would only be amplified by a second person also putting up with this crap and potentially making you put up with it even more. One of these issues relates to a criticism that my good friend Eric of Twitch channel Nomad Eric has about the Resident Evil series in general, being that the enemies are too spongy. He directs this mostly towards 4, and I personally don't agree with him in that game, or the remakes of 2 and 3 for that matter, as for the most part, bosses aside, things seem to die at a reasonable rate if not slightly slower than they should. RE2's remake is occasionally an exception to this, but that's very much a horror game, so I accept it in that case. In RE5 though, this criticism is dead on from moment one. Everything in this game was designed to waste your ammo and keep you low to try and make up for the tension that the game is lacking, because the atmosphere is so thin in this game that NASA would start to question if it's fucking habitable. Let me just unload into this bloke for his head to explode into a giant worm that takes another 2 full clips of my machine gun ammo. Sure, why not? I see no problem with that balancing. What's that? You don't like the standard enemies? Well, how about one that's 8 feet tall, can knock you off your feet, does massive damage, summons even more walking sponges for you to take care of, and takes more shots than me after uploading this video when I'm drinking my sorrows away knowing it's only going to get worse and that I'm wasting my time playing a decade-old video game while the world is seemingly ending every 5 minutes. God, this year sucks. Oh, you've got tired of human enemies, have you? Well, here's a section with crocodiles which spawn in slightly different locations, take between 3 to 7 shots to kill with a sniper rifle, and one-shot you if you get too close, because who needs enjoyment in your video games? I'm here to beat up a blonde British Matrix fan, not fight a goddamn Capra demon. Oh, and speaking of Wesker, let's actually talk about the bosses of this game, which go from an absolute joke to me wishing they were fucking joking, because I'm breaking my no spoiler rule here, and I'm gonna show you an attempt at a segment of the final boss battle against Wesker. That's right, a segment. The footage that is being sped up on your screen right now is a 17-minute attempt of me fighting Wesker. I have 44 shotgun bullets at the start of this attempt, the AI Sheva has 27 sniper rifle bullets and 31 handgun bullets. All of them had upgrades on their firepower to increase the damage, and I still spent 12 fucking minutes knifing him. 12 minutes! And these times are without the pause screens included, by the way. I checked. Sheva had used all of our heals because she has a problem, and the AI would just walk into Wesker and get hit often. So what I ended up doing was set them to the cover mode so they would stick close, and use them to get out of Wesker's grab attacks so I could continue knifing his weak spots for more damage, and this worked. I got to the cutscene where you grab onto Wesker as Chris while Sheva stabs him repeatedly. Little did I know, you take damage in this cutscene because of course you do. So I went down because Sheva had snorted all our herbs and sprays already, meaning that Wesker wasn't dead, then proceeded to grab and insta-kill Sheva because the AI couldn't escape an open field. So that's right, this interactive cutscene, which is the final thing in the game before Wesker dies and the game ends by the way, killed me, meaning that those 17 minutes of me getting to this point were completely wasted because 102 upgraded bullets and 12 minutes of stabbing weren't enough to overcome the general ineptitude of the AI and the bullshittery that is the gaming industry's love affair with QuickTime events circa 2009. Oh, so you want my final thoughts on RE5? Do you even need them? I hated this. This sucked. Apparently all my memories were just from the first chapter because aside from Chris punching a boulder, everything in between was apparently expunged from my memory, and now I can see why. If you were gonna buy this game, take the money that you and maybe even your friend were going to use to purchase it and go donate it to a charity or something, because at least you get some fucking satisfaction from that. Thanks for watching, subscribe, hit the bell, all that jazz. This was miserable, and the fact that this isn't even considered to be the worst game is is quite something. So yeah, next week we've got RE6. I'm sure that's gonna go well, based off this one. But yeah, I've been Kane from VividChim, and I need a drink. See you next time.